stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. But Jasmine wasn't the type to crumble. If they were going to take her down, she wasn't going alone. Jasmine's apartment, staring at the phone in her hand. The call had left her uneasy, the cryptic message lingering in her mind. She had always prided herself on being in control, but now she was unsure of who was pulling the strings or how far the game had gone. But one thing was clear, the stakes had just been raised. She had to act fast. Chris and Joc thought they were in control, but Jasmine knew better. She wasn't about to let them dictate the terms. She would expose them, destroy their reputations, their careers, their lives if she had to. In the world of love and hip-hop, power was everything, and Jasmine was about to wield it like never before. The days passed in a blur of meetings, phone calls, and secretive exchanges. Jasmine kept gathering her evidence, more receipts, more messages, more dirt on both Chris and Joc. She was playing a dangerous game, but she was no stranger to danger. She had dealt with men like Chris Frost and Joc before, men who thought they could control her, who underestimated her. It was their mistake, and they were about to pay for it. But the more she dug, the more she realized how deep this rabbit hole went. The blackmail wasn't just about Chris and Joc. It was about a larger scheme. Someone else was involved, someone powerful. Jasmine wasn't sure who yet, but she was determined to find out. That's when she got the tip. It came in the form of a text message, sent anonymously. Look into Joc's business dealings. Follow the money. The message was brief, but it was enough to spark her curiosity. Joc had always been a little too secretive about his finances, and Jasmine had always wondered where he was getting his money from. She had a feeling this was the key to unraveling the entire mess. She spent the next few days digging through everything she could find. She hacked into his financial records, traced his business transactions, and reached out to a few trusted sources who had access to information. What she uncovered shocked her. Joc had been laundering money through a network of fake businesses. It was a huge operation, and it explained why he had been so protective of his secrets. He wasn't just a thug from the streets. He was a criminal mastermind, running an illegal empire. Jasmine knew she couldn't take this information lightly. If she exposed this, it would destroy Joc's life completely. He would go to prison, and his career in the entertainment industry would be over. But there was one problem. The person who was running the show behind the scenes, pulling the strings, making the deals, was someone even more dangerous. It was then that Jasmine realized she wasn't just fighting for money. She was fighting for her life. The next time she saw Chris, he seemed different, more anxious than usual. He was jittery, constantly looking over his shoulder, as if he were afraid someone was watching him. Jasmine didn't waste any time. "I've been digging," she said, her voice cold. "I know about Joc's little business empire. I know you've been laundering money." Chris's face went pale, and for a moment, Jasmine thought he might crack under pressure. But he didn't. Instead, he tried to play it cool. "You don't know what you're talking about," Chris said, his voice shaking slightly. "You're just making stuff up." "Am I?" Jasmine shot back. "I have the proof. And believe me, I'm not afraid to use it." Chris took a step back, his eyes widening. He realized that Jasmine wasn't bluffing. She had him right where she wanted him. "Jasmine, listen," Chris began, trying to regain his composure. "You don't want to do this. You don't know who you're messing with." "Oh, I know exactly who I'm messing with," Jasmine said with a smirk, "and you're not going to get away with this. Not this time." Jasmine had made her move. She wasn't just after $50,000 anymore. She had bigger plans. She would take down Chris and Joc, expose their dirty dealings, and make sure they both paid for what they had done. The power was now in her hands. But as she left the meeting, something didn't sit right with her. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that someone else was behind all of this. Someone had orchestrated the entire blackmail scheme, using Chris and Joc as pawns in a larger game. And Jasmine wasn't going to rest until she found out who. The next day, as Jasmine sat in her apartment, going over the latest evidence she had collected, she received another call from an unknown number. This time she didn't hesitate. She answered immediately. "Hello," she said, her voice steady but filled with anticipation. "Jasmine," the voice on the other end said, its tone dark and threatening. "You think you're in control. You think you can expose everything and walk away unscathed. You're playing a dangerous game." Jasmine's pulse quickened, but she refused to show any fear. "Who is this?" "You'll find out soon enough," the voice replied, before hanging up abruptly. Jasmine's mind raced. Who was behind all of this? Who had the power to make threats like that? She wasn't going to let this person intimidate her. She would find them, expose them, and make sure they pay for trying to destroy her. But for now, Jasmine had to keep her cool. The game wasn't over yet. In fact, it was only just beginning. Jasmine wasn't one to back down. The more obstacles that were thrown her way, the more she felt compelled to push forward. Her hands were shaking with adrenaline as she sat in front of her laptop, scanning the information she had gathered. Every new detail about Chris Frost and Joc only made the picture clearer, but the bigger the puzzle, the more dangerous it became. She thought back to the cryptic phone call. Someone out there knew exactly what she was doing, and they were making sure to warn her at every turn. It was unsettling, but Jasmine couldn't let fear control her. She had come too far, and now there was no turning back. The blackmail, the betrayal, it all led to this moment. It had become more than just money. This was about control, power, and retribution. The truth was that neither Chris nor Joc knew who they were messing with. Jasmine had seen and done things others wouldn't even dream of, and she had the willpower to take down anyone who crossed her. As the days passed, Jasmine's plan took shape. She knew what had to be done. She had already collected everything she needed: texts, receipts, bank records, and recordings. But she needed one final piece of the puzzle. She needed to know who was behind the scenes pulling all the strings. Her contacts were invaluable,